Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Andrew Wall, managing partner here at CPA for IT, and we're excited to host a session on what is cloud-based bookkeeping and how to leverage it. So bear with me 1 second, and I will get my slideshow up and running. I just need to share my screen. There we go. So how to leverage cloud-based bookkeeping tools. As many of you know, I'm a huge believer in cloud-based technology. Of course, online as post-COVID is the way to go for sure. We are excited to be partners with Intuit and QuickBooks Online. Alexa, stop and don't mind my doorbell ringing. Of course, it's the middle of a session. Alexa, stop. Alexa, close. Smart doorbells. Give me 1 second. So sorry about that. That's always fun when you are in the middle of a session and your doorbell decides to ring. So we're going to be talking about how to leverage cloud-based bookkeeping tools. If I can get my slide deck to change slides. There we go. As I mentioned, my name is Andrew Wall. I'm the managing partner here at CPA for IT. And our mission is to help our clients organize their finances, create wealth, and transform wealth into a legacy. And when it comes to cloud-based bookkeeping, there's no better tool for helping you to organize your finances. This is some amazing tools out there with QuickBooks Online and Xero. There are other tools out there as well, but the two largest in the community, without a doubt, are QBO and Xero. So those will be the ones that we're talking about today. And again, well, I think Xero is a great product. We have dove deep into working with QuickBooks Online, as that is the provider that we find works best with our clients. And we've got some amazing discounted pricing that we can share with each and one of you. So for those of you who are not familiar with cloud-based bookkeeping, it's basically just online bookkeeping. But the benefit of it is that you can now have better integrations with your online banking to get direct feeds coming in. You can do a whole bunch more automations. They're now beginning to leverage more and more artificial intelligence. The reality is that QuickBooks Online is one of the first applications that was using artificial intelligence in a meaningful way, where they were using it to help categorize and process transactions. We do get a discount because we are a wholesale provider of QuickBooks Online. So if you're looking to get QuickBooks Online for your business, you cannot get it cheaper than you can get it through our firm. So if you wanted a wholesale discount, reach out to our onboarding team. Rachel and Karen would be happy to set you up with a QuickBooks Online account if you need it. We do have access to Xero and some discounted pricing on Xero, but it is not as steep as it is in QuickBooks, simply because we don't have as many customers, so we don't have as much buying power when it comes to Xero. The reason you might want to switch and consider moving over to cloud-based bookkeeping from, say, a desktop-based application, or for many of our clients, using something like Excel. So obviously, having remote access and being able to access your books wherever you are, as opposed to having to have the dedicated laptop. This can be accessed from an iPad. It can be accessed from your mobile device. There are apps for your desktop. There are apps for your phone. So the ability to work anywhere, wherever you are, whenever you need to, is an increased improvement. There's also the ability to use their receipts feature to snap photos and upload those. You obviously get more real-time access to your business information because you're getting those bank feeds automatically coming in, setting up automatic processing of some of those transactions so that you can code them, which gives you faster access to your data, which gives you real-time visibility into the business health, which is essential for things like tax planning and figuring out what your salary is going to be, as well as making faster decision-making and improved cash flow. Not so much of an issue for many of our clients who are mostly independent contractors who have very good cash flow. and often aren't making decisions in their business based off of their finances. But it does give you increased visibility into things like your director's advances, the total amount of money that you are spending on deductible expenses. And director's advances, for those not familiar, is the money that you're pulling out of your corporation that is not for deductible expenses and which will need to become either a salary or a dividend. Increased automation and fewer manual errors, as we talked about before. Automation, automation, automation. There's a lot of automation that you can build right into the app itself. There is even greater automation that you can build by leveraging tools like Zapier or Make or other middleware tools to be able to automate a lot of your processes. And then again, they are using, bank level encryption and two-factor authentication to make sure your information is secure. But you really do need to be vigilant as cybercrime is on the rise. And even with bank level encryption and two-factor authentication, it doesn't mean your data is safe. We've done whole other sessions on cybersecurity and the importance of that. So, if you are using a cloud-based tool, it is a blessing that it's online, but it is also a curse from a cybersecurity. You need to dot your I's and cross your T's to make sure that your system is set up and protected. So first we'll talk a little bit about QuickBooks Online, pros and cons here. So it's got a very robust feature set. In the early days, Xero was definitively the leader in features and functionality. But I was at a conference. I go to many accounting conferences, Xero, QBO, as many of them as I can get my hands on. I'm going to one actually tomorrow. And I was at a conference, and it was a QuickBooks conference in San Jose, California. It was with some of the top 100 accounting professionals in the world, literally people flown in from Australia, South Africa, all over the world. A lot of people, a lot of Americans, some notable Canadians. And there was a guy there that I have a lot of respect for, owns a company called LiveCA, who is a cloud accounting specialist, one of the early adopters. They were certainly one of the first 5 in Canada to use QuickBooks Online to use cloud accounting. They're a much bigger Xero firm. They've now migrated over to QBO and now offering both, but originally just strictly Xero. And he said something really interesting to me at the time. He said, I love Xero, and, QBO is just not nearly the quality product that Xero is today. However, one thing you have to realize is that QuickBooks has more developers on staff than Xero has staff. And with that, he helped solidify for me that I needed to skate to where the puck was going, and that diving all in on QBO was the answer, because the amount of development and what they've been able to do with the product from those early days when it was lagging behind Xero to bring it up to parity with Xero, and then, in my opinion, exceed functionality, because now we've got a whole bunch of things that we can do within QuickBooks Online. There's work papers functionality. There is receipts functionality. There is payroll functionality. There is everything that you need in a robust bookkeeping and an accounting application. And then for anything that is, niched in, whether you're talking, applications specific to property management, there's tools out there like Yardi, and they've got an entire API and suite of applications available for integration to help you niche down to the specific tools that you might need that would vary specifically by industry. And that functionality really is incredible. The only downside really is that it can be expensive, especially if you're starting to add on a lot of these add-ons. If you are niched into a specific industry and you need to add some custom functionality that isn't provided in QBO natively, yeah, it's great, it's there in the apps, but there is some costs associated with adding on those different applications. And QuickBooks themselves are raising their rates quite steadily at substantially faster rates than inflation. The costs are going up as the product is getting better and better. The great news, again, with QBO is that it's going to be easy for you to swap from one bookkeeper to another bookkeeper, one accountant to another accountant. You can port your books with you, and it is really easy to use. And there's very few accountants who will not use QuickBooks Online. And again, a whole suite of automation that you can do, from automating the bank statement transactions coming in, to coding those transactions, to setting up recurring payments, a ton of functionality. And we'll go in and I'll show you a little bit of the product in a second too as well. But before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit about Xero. Xero has an impressive offering. Like I said, in the beginning days, they were certainly the one to beat, and they set the new standard and basically forced Intuit and QBO to come to the market, step into the game, and build a very robust product. They have one of the cleanest UI that I've ever seen. Many people believe it's better than the user experience that you have in QuickBooks online. It does have a really good project-based business tools and cost accounting and stuff like that, which has been a limitation in QBO for job costing and that type of functionality. They've got some really impressive functionality. They've done a number of great acquisitions that have brought some new functionality to the tool. They've got access to Tax Cycle, which is a tax software that they bought to compete with Intuit's Profile and Pro Tax software. So trying more and more to be a competitor to QBO, but in my opinion, it definitely, I would say that they're, in this day and age, both will work. So I don't want to disparage either. The reality is we get a better discount and ultimately better pricing on QBO, and it provides the functionality that our customers need for us. And the usability and the UI, well, better in Xero, I would agree, and stronger in Xero, perfectly adequate in QBO. And the analogy that I've often used when comparing Xero to QuickBooks Online is Mac versus PC. PC has obviously substantially wider adoption, and there are more people out there who are using the tools with PCs. But a Mac is elegant and sexy and sleek and works well, and the battery lasts forever. And you've got some amazing benefits to that too. But you can use either in this day and age. So whether you want to be a Xero or a QBO, both are going to give you a lot of the functionality we need, which is connecting to those bank accounts so those transactions come in every single month without you having to think about it. Now, across the board, both Xero and QBO do have problems with bank feeds, so it's not all sunshine and lollipops. But the reality is, if you're going in at least on a monthly basis, or at the very least a quarterly basis, you'll be able to quickly see if your bank feed has broken, reconnect it, and it will go back and pull the transactions that it's missed. As long as you do it within 3 months, you're generally fine, because it'll be able to go and pull that information. There are some banks that if you go in and it's been 5 or 6 months, you may only be able to pull the last 3 months, and then you are stuck with having to manually upload the transactions, which you can still do with a CSV. Still will be a lot faster than you manually typing in the individual transactions. But the goal is to have a seamless integration with your banks, which includes your credit cards and your bank accounts. So those transactions come in so that you're eliminating the data entry that goes along with it. And this can save, tens, if not hundreds of hours of laborious data entry that, small business owners hate doing. And often if you hate doing it, you avoid doing it. And then next thing you know, you're late and you're hitting with penalties. So anyone who is struggling to keep their bookkeeping and accounting online, cloud accounting solutions are definitely the way to go. Unfortunately, it is not just a set it up, log in, create the account, connect it to your bank, and not touch it for a year. You do need to go in regularly. You do need to update transactions. You do need to create bank rules so that more and more transactions can be processed automatically. But the more you use it, the less time you will need to spend in the tool. One, you'll get familiar with it, and you'll understand how the functionality works, which will just make you faster on its own. Plus, the more bank rules that you set up and create, the less actual data entry that you will be doing. And that's really the goal, and the reason why you would want to move to a cloud-based application is because it's saving you time and money, and time, which is money. So that's, our high-level overview. As we said, the benefits are substantial if I don't go too fast. You always know your bank balance and your cash flow position. You'll be able to go in and see at a glance. You'll be able to catch errors quickly. We say not at month end, but let's face it, it's not until year end. And going through the entire year's worth of transactions can make it difficult and time confusing. And if you are a more traditional business, it's going to make decisions for hiring, spending, or investment a lot easier. You can even do stuff like budgeting. There's a ton of functionality that you can do within the applications. This is an example of what a QBO dashboard looks like. I'm going to actually go in and show you. But the most important things that you need to do, whether you're using QBO or Xero, is set up your account, which means setting up your fiscal year end, putting in your company name, all the basic contact information, as well as setting up and connecting your bank feeds so that they auto import. I've said it 10 times. I'll say it 100 more. Most important thing to do is connect those bank feeds, get those transactions, and log in every month to make sure that the bank feed isn't broken. And if it is, to reconnect it. Unfortunately, the bank feeds do break quite regularly because of multi-factor authentication. So you do need to come in and set those up and reconnect those periodically. We also want to set up rules to auto-classify transactions. These are called bank rules in QuickBooks Online. They work for both bank and credit cards. And this is where you're going to get a ton of time savings. Well, QuickBooks Online will make recommendations for transactions based on its artificial intelligence and the information it's been able to glean from its entire database of business owners, which is substantial. And again, when it comes to artificial intelligence and where the future holds, so again, looking to skating to where the puck goes, Intuit has announced an investment of $6 billion into artificial intelligence. And we're still at the early days. I'm excited to see tomorrow's session to see what they have to announce as far as what's coming down the pipeline. But artificial intelligence is going to become a bigger and bigger factor as we go forward. And the more data that you have, the better your artificial intelligence is going to be. And Intuit has the largest database of financial information in the world, bar none, which again leads me to see Intuit as the leader in the cloud accounting space. But you want to set up those rules because the generic recommendations that they come up with are going to be based off of Intuit's entire database, which isn't specific to you and your business. Canadian Tire might come up as a general recommendation for auto parts because that's what most people use it for. But for you, that might be the place that you are going for office supplies or, things for your home for that will be part of your home office expenses. They could be just about anything. So, but you can set up rules. So you can say, hey, if I go to Canadian Tire and it's over $100, that's going to be, Canadian Tire gas bar and I'm buying fuel. If it's $100, it's office supplies. And you can create that kind of granularity in those types of rules. And you can do the same thing for Starbucks. If I go into Starbucks and it's under $20, it's business promotion and I'm taking a colleague for coffee. If it's over $100, I'm probably buying a gift card and it's, advertising and a gift that I'm giving away. And so those rules that you set up for your own business are going to allow you to have those transactions either recommended, because you might have something like Canadian Tire where, if it's under $100, it could be a multitude of accounts, but, by default, you're going to recommend, say, home office. But you can set it up so that it doesn't auto code. It just makes a recommendation and then you can approve it. Or you can set it up where is Starbucks, for example, it's always coffee. You're not getting anything else there. So, like I said, if it's under $20, it's business promotion and you can have it automatically process that transaction and you will never need to touch a Starbucks transaction ever again. You can do things like Petro-Canada, Esso. Those are always going to be fuel. So you can set those up to automatically code every single month. But just because you've coded every transaction on your bank statement and credit card doesn't mean you were actually done. You do need to reconcile your banks every single month. Now, technically, this can be done quarterly. It can be done annually. But anyone who's ever done a bank reconciliation knows you want to do it based on the month. Because if you do have a missing transaction, which is or a duplicate transaction, which will boggle your bank reconciliation, it is a lot easier to find when you're doing 1 month at a time as opposed to doing 12 months at a time. But the bank reconciliations are really straightforward. You basically just have an opening balance that will be set from your previous bank reconciliation. Or if you're starting from scratch, maybe you set it at 0. You will have your transactions, debits and credits that flew through your bank or your credit card. And then you will have a closing balance. And if your opening balance plus your debits and credits equals your closing balance, then your bank reconciles. If it doesn't, you've either got a duplicate transaction or you've got a missing transaction, and you need to find that and fix that as soon as possible. So reconciling your bank accounts is absolutely critical, and leveraging automations to automate the process as much as possible, and not only including the auto import of the bank transactions and the bank rules to auto classify transactions, but third-party tools like Zapier and Make allow you to do integrations with other tools. Can even be Google Forms to create all sorts of automations that you can do. So for example, you might have your invoicing done in another tool, and it might be, let's say, a client tool or a staffing agency tool that you have to use to submit your hours, but technically you need to have an invoice. The hours you're submitting through the portal from your agency is not a valid invoice. So you should be creating a proper invoice, either in Excel or in another tool. You can set up Zapier or Make to automate all of that for you automatically, maybe leveraging the data that you're putting into the time entry system that you are using for your staffing agency. So a ton that you can do, and highly recommend. Most common pitfalls, number one is not reconciling bank accounts. We do see that over and over again. Mixing personal and business expenses. Our recommendation here is to always use one corporate bank account and one corporate credit card, and do your best to keep all of your business expenses on your corporate credit card and all your personal expenses on a personal credit card. That doesn't mean that if you happen to have one transaction on a personal credit card that we can't process that. You can enter that as a receipt or an expense, or you can group them together and do a spreadsheet and do them at month end for all your personally paid expenses. Of course, not leveraging the built-in automation features like the bank rules is a very often overlooked benefit. The more you get familiar with bank rules, the easier and easier your bookkeeping becomes. And then lastly, not actually categorizing your transactions on a regular basis. Waiting 6 months or a year before you come back in to look at your bookkeeping, and then being overwhelmed with it all and putting it away for another week or another month, and then again being late and dealing with interest and penalties. If you do have any questions about any of this stuff, we are here to help. We do have a bookkeeping service, so if you have QBO but are just overwhelmed, we can take over that bookkeeping for you. We can also just provide coaching and one-on-one, so you'll just pay for the hour or the time that you need with our bookkeeping coaches. They will help you set up and configure your bookkeeping, provide tips and recommendations, dive deeper into your specific situation. We're more than happy to help. If you're not already a client, you can scan the QR code here and book a free consultation. If you are a client, reach out to your accountant and they'll be happy to connect you with your bookkeeper. Now, I did want to see if I can find a sample QBO client. And this is Craig's Design and Landscaping Services. This is a free sample file that you can play around with in QuickBooks Online. It's great for testing and getting familiar with it. If you want to play around with it, you can go to qbo.intuit.com/app/get-things-done. This is the trial. Anyone can log in, no password required. And this just allows you to see what the functionality is and what you can do with the product. There's amazing functionality around tasks. I'm not going to dive into that too much today. I want to cover the core functionality of what you need to do. So one of the most important things is your gear icon up here in the top left-hand corner. That's your settings. It gives you access to a whole bunch of tools, including the reconcile, which is important exporting data if you ever need to do that, importing data if you want to do that as well. But the most important thing is the account settings over here, because this is the very first thing that you're going to need to go to set up. You want to set up your company name. You could add a logo. Your industry is helpful. Your contact information is important. And there's some more critical information that you need to get to under the advanced setting. So if you look here under accounting, this is absolutely critical that you come in here and update this with the first year of your fiscal year end. This will update things like reporting and stuff like that. So you need to come in here and set the first month of your fiscal year end. So if you're December 31st year end, it's your first month of your fiscal year end is January. If you had a January 31st year end, your first month would be February, et cetera, et cetera. By default, the first month of income tax year is going to be January because that's the calendar year, not same as fiscal. And the accounting method you want to set up as accrual. In Canada, we have to use the accrual method of accounting. In the States, they can use the cash method of accounting, but this is absolutely critical. You can enable account numbers in your chart of accounts, which we do recommend because we use account numbers and it just helps you to be a little bit faster and more efficient. We also have a standard chart of accounts that you can import. We're happy to provide those. We're happy to import those for you automatically if we're setting up the account for you. And in fact, if you're buying a QBO license from us, we will by default import our standard chart of accounts. You've got classes and locations, which is a way to categorize or subgroup your information. Again, we don't use that too often for most of our clients, but that functionality is available. And then you've got some automation that you can turn on and off, like pre-filling forms, automatically applying credit notes, automatically invoicing unbilled clients, automatically applying bill payments. And you can turn that off and on based on your individual preferences. But the key in here is to come in here and make sure you set up your accounting settings. Time is for QuickBooks time. Expenses is for receipts. Sales, you can do some custom automation for your billing and stuff like that as well too, including custom invoices and reminders and all sorts of amazing things that you can do with the billing functionality within QBO. Now, to begin doing actual data entry, once you've set up your account and imported your chart of accounts, you want to come in and begin entering. Usually it starts with your sales invoices. And Rachel has raised her hand. Rachel, I'm going to allow you to talk. Did you have a question? Or was that an accident? You're muted.
Hi, Andrew. Sorry, I was messaging you. You were not sharing your screen, so we weren't able to see the information from QBO. We're only seeing the slide.
Okay, thank you. I thought I was sharing.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Apparently not. Sorry. I must have just been sharing the QBO. So let me go back here and show you where that stuff is again. Gear icon, accounts and settings, advanced, edit. Okay, and that's where you can set your first month of your fiscal year, first month of the income tax year, and your accounting method, which is absolutely critical. Yes, sorry about that, guys. Sorry about that, everyone. So again, getting back into it, sales is typically the first thing that you're going to be entering. Some of you will do what we call cash coding, which is where you record both your sales and your expenses just from your transactions on your bank account. But in, a best case scenario or best practice, you want to actually be coming in and entering your actual individual invoices. And you can create customers here. You can create a product or service if you have one. You want to set up your default product or service the first time. You can do estimates. You can do invoices. You can do recurring invoices. And you can do receive payments. So an invoice creates the invoice, but it doesn't record the payment. The payment would be associated with your bank account, and you would then match the bank account payment to the invoice that you created. Again, I love creating recurring invoices. if you bill the same amount every single month, that can really make your process simple and smooth. Again, I'm not going to dive into the weeds too much about this. The one thing I will mention is there is one step you do have to do when it comes to setting up your account as well, and that's setting up your sales tax. And you'll need to have, either GST, HST, or PST and HST, or just HST, depending upon your individual province. So we'll come in here and set up your different sales taxes. These are setting up for in the American demo. But in the Canadian one, I promise you, they do have HST rates for the appropriate provinces that you can set up here. And you'll need to set up that before you do your first invoice, because when you apply sales tax, it will pull the sales tax amount from your sales tax center. So taxes, sales tax center, gear icon, accounts and settings, those are the critical things to set up. Okay. Then we want to come into your bank transactions and go into your bank transactions. You can see here they've got 3 accounts set up. You can come in here and link a new account and connect that to your bank. It's pretty straightforward process. You just select your bank and log in, and it will connect. Again, because it is using multi-factor authentication, those feeds will eventually break, and you'll have to come in and put in your multi-factor authentication to reconnect. But when those transactions are synced, they will come in and look something like this. You can see some of these have found a match. Some of these will have recommendations, so we don't have any recommendations in here. And some of them will just have a uncategorized income or uncategorized expense because there's no recommendation coming up. And it's really simple to come in here and process each of these individually, because you can come in here and just select your individual account and add that. Or more importantly, we can create a bank rule. So, hey, maybe every time we have a deposit from Books by Bessie, we want to categorize that into one of the income categories. Or I guess, yeah, this is a deposit, right? This is, so maybe that's design income, right? And we can assign that to a specific product or service if we want to, but that is not required. We can even add in memos. We can even add in attachments. But again, the favorite thing I love is being able to create a rule. And these are the bank rules that I talked to you guys about before. You can give your bank rule a name. You can say, are you dealing with money coming in or money going out? In this case, it's money coming in. You can select all bank accounts or just a specific bank account, because maybe, you use one credit card for, personal and one for corporate. You can then process those transactions as well. I do see some more questions coming in. Not sharing, not sharing. You can still see the slides. Okay, so just all old related to my silliness. So these rules you can then test. As I said earlier, you can create a whole bunch of things. What you want the bank text, the description, the amount to contain, not contain is exactly, and then you fill in your variables. And you can add in multiple conditions, so you don't need just one. You can add in multiple conditions. And what you really want to do is decide whether you want this transaction to auto add. This is what I was saying before. If you had something from, say, Starbucks, and you knew that was always going to be coffee, always going to be business promotion, you want to auto add that. But let's say it's, the Bay, which no longer exists, but, Canadian Tire, or, big department store that sells multiple things, or Amazon, you may not want to auto add that. You might want it to just make a recommendation. And that's where you can decide whether you want to auto add or not. And then we can save that if I give it a rule. And we're going to say that's going to always be design income. And bam, we now have a bank rule set up. And we can go in here and see all of our rules that have set up. Normally you would, and there we are. So we can see there's the test Bessie that we just created. You can modify and edit those rules. You can also view your chart of accounts from in here and modify those. So you can import if you have a CSV. Again, we have a sample chart of accounts that if you need a chart of accounts and we didn't set up the account for you, you can just come in here and import that. Again, one critical thing about these chart of accounts is that you can modify this so that certain accounts have a default tax rate. Again, you got to set up your tax rate, your tax center first. But this is really important for quick versus long method of HST. Most of our clients we're going to recommend be on the quick method of HST. The quick method of HST, for those of you who aren't familiar, means you take 7.8% of your first 30,000 of revenue and 8.8% of everything above that. And you don't take any input tax credits. So you don't take the GST from your individual expenses with the exception of fixed assets. And that means that when you're coding your transactions and you're on the quick method, you do not want to break out the transactions from your regular expenses, only from your fixed assets. Whereas if you're on the long method is you take what you collect and you subtract from that what you have paid in HST on your various expenses, and the rest you remit to the government. So if you are on the long method, you do need to make sure that you set up each of your accounts to be assigning the appropriate tax rate. And you can set defaults for each individual account by coming in and changing the tax rate, the tax type, although, of course, it's not coming up in the demo. Of course, it's not. There you go. Okay. I'm going to skip that for now, but I promise you, normally you can choose with your chart of accounts whether they have sales tax by default or not, and which sales tax they have. So then, again, like I said, the key is coming in here on a monthly basis, going through your transactions, seeing which transactions. So you can see there's a bank balance and there's the bank balance in QuickBooks. You'll notice those are different, and that's because there's 24 transactions that have yet to be coded. If done correctly and all your transactions are processed, let's just process that one. This is not refreshing. Of course, love demos. These should normally, when you're all caught up, they should be in balance. Not sure why in this demo they're not. But let's just, I'm not even reviewing these. I'm just processing these for default so that we can match that first one. And this is situations where it's come up. Now, of course, this is a terrible demo. Normally, when you come to complete all your transactions, you will have a green check mark and your balance in QuickBooks will match your bank and balance. Now, again, we can go and do a bank rec because we clearly have either missing transactions or duplicate transactions in both of these accounts. And that's the reason why, or I mean, potentially our opening balance is out. Again, this is dummy data, so I'm just playing around with it. But you want to come in here, like I said, on a regular basis and process your transactions. And as I said, it is super simple to come in here and clear these. It can be as simple as adding the transaction if it is selected the right category and the right sales tax. Matching if it is matched to the appropriate invoice, which these are matching to invoices. So you can just come in here and hit match, 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 and even come in here and do bulk transactions where if we had selected just the ones that are matched. We can then highlight them all and hit accept, and it's going to bulk select as many of those as we can. So you can imagine that this, when you've set up all your bank rules and they're running really smoothly, means you can do your bookkeeping faster than you can brew a pot of coffee. And that really is the core advantage of QuickBooks Online and cloud accounting based solutions. Again, not knocking Xero. Xero is a great tool. If you want to use Xero, go for it. What I will take the chance to knock is Wave. And Wave is a free cloud-based application with a lot of limited functionality. You are going to be hard pressed to find an accountant that recommends Wave as a cloud-based accounting solution. And same probably for FreshBooks. The two top contenders for cloud-based accounting solutions, which most accounting professionals and bookkeeping professionals are going to recommend, is going to be Xero and QuickBooks Online. I would say that FreshBooks is coming on strong. They're doing a lot of development, but they're nowhere near where QBO and Xero are right now. So that's going to bring us to the close of today's session. If anyone has any questions, feel free to post them in the chat, or sorry, in the Q&A. If you don't have any questions, I appreciate you taking your lunch hour to join us today. And looking forward to helping you on your journey to organize your finances, create wealth, and transform wealth into a legacy. Thanks, everyone. See nothing in the Q&A and nothing in the chat. So I'm going to thank everyone for their time and wish you a happy